People who grew up with wealth, what was your "I'm privileged" wake-up call?
When I was a kid, my best friend came to our house for the first time. He kept saying, "Wow." He was really impressed that we had two TVs. It embarrassed me enough that I didn't tell him we had four.
When I was confused about people on Maury complaining their spouse was at the club, and I couldn't figure out what type of country club would let people like that through the front security gate.
I took my friend to my parents' cabin, and he said, "Wow, this is nicer than my house."
Every summer, I went to 8 weeks of overnight camp, or some other cool summer program, 30-day bus tour across western US, 3 weeks in Australia. I had no idea what those cost at the time.
I was gonna say I realized how privileged I was when I spent a summer with my great-grandmother in a small village in rural Hungary, no indoor running water, the only phone was at the church, and everyone came out to touch the rental car we drove there in. This was in the late 1980s, but after reading some of the comments on here, I feel poor again, lol.
My parents loved to travel. By the time I was 16, I had been to every continent aside from Antarctica. I didn't realize that this was privileged behavior until I went to uni, and most of the guys I met had never left the country. In fact, I grew up thinking I was less privileged because everyone at my school was just obscenely rich. Like all their stuff was high-end designer stuff while I was in Converse.
At this point I already knew I was very well off, but after I had gotten laid off for the first time, a few years ago I took a break for about a month before diving into a job search. I was at the self-checkout at the grocery store next to a woman paying with food stamps. I had recently gotten $100,000 from my grandmother's inheritance, and it hit me, I'm unemployed, not even trying to find a job, and I just got a boatload of money because somebody else died, and she's the one people think is the freeloader.
My parents are wealthy, but I grew up in a place where many of my peers' parents were super-duper crazy wealthy, so I had a really skewed understanding of wealth. It was really eye-opening for me. When I went to college, I didn't have to take out student loans. My parents were able to just pay for it. But I had friends who, even with financial aid, had to work their butts off year-round to cover the cost of school. I realized pretty quickly just how privileged I was, and that I did in fact grow up with wealth.